welcome to the Facial Recognition Comedy Podcast. I'm Fizza Dasani.
I'm Paula Viganalin.
I'm Zara Ali.
And today we are joined by our guest, Ashley Carey. Hey.
Hey, how are you doing?
Ashley. Hey.
So for our listeners, I met Ashley on set. We were judges for a kids show for actually a robot. Kids
Goldie Blocks, right?
Yeah, you know Goldie Blocks. So you're you're pretty much an engineer, a software engineer,
I write software,
and an app developer.
I'm not like a licensed engineer in the state of California. We have this debate internally at my job all of the time. It's like a big thing. Am I allowed to be a software engineer, or are we just software developers, or like programmers? Or
you're definitely not just a programmer. That's like a factory worker. You're a programmer. I identify as a programmer.
Yes. Do you have to be registered in the state of California as an engineer to call yourself a software engineer?
No, not at all. But like the argument is that for every other engineering job, almost every other engineering job, if you're like a bridge engineer or a civil engineer or some kind of engineer, you went through your classes.
But I feel like, but you don't have to like. I think software engineering is a completely different animal because like even with like mechanical engineering and all the other engineering, you can take the professional engineering exam. Right. But I think that just because it's more like software engineering is more accessible, like you don't have to have a degree in it to be good at it.
That's right.
That doesn't mean that you're not a software engineer, like the practice that you're doing every day.
That's true. I think to me, engineering is building things, right?
Yeah.
And we are constantly reminded to reuse code where we can because it like saves time, it's quick, it's efficient. Like if it already works in one place, see if it will work in this other place. And in that way, that's anti-engineering in my head because it's like I'm not devising a new way to build a bridge. I'm like, remember that bridge? Go pick it up and bring it over here.
But it's not reinventing the wheel, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not. It's just applying solutions in the real world.
I agree.
I mean, you're leveraging what's already there, right?
That's how any scientific inquiry or engineering inquiry works, right?
But do you credit those people when you're like reusing something that someone else worked on or whatever? Are those folks credited that?
I think I look at it's called looking at the Git blame. Like when you use version control and you're writing code with other programmers.
Version control is when you're trying to make sure that the code that you're working on and the code that somebody else is working on doesn't change simultaneously, so that it's like the same version.
Yeah. So like when I'm working on my team and I'm like, who wrote this line of code, exactly this line? Because we're all writing code in the same classes all the time. I open Git blame, I think more than anybody else that I know because I'm like, oh, this is some Brian code. Okay, Brian. Okay. I see what you're doing here.
Everybody's got their signature style.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it. And I'm not doing it to be judgmental and be like, that idiot. I'm just like, okay, interesting. I'm starting to pick up on like the way he likes to do things.
Ashley, I feel like technically illiterate.
What do you mean?
I'm trying to translate here.
I can translate. I'm good at this too.
So I work in tech. I've been in technology consulting for like, I don't want to say how long because then everybody's going to know how old I am, but it's
Zara's 14 years old.
It's been a long time. So I get it. I understand version control. We actually use that across all of corporate America. It's not even just in technology anymore.
You use it in case you screw up and you need to go back in time.
Yeah.
It's really like before version control, people, I hear this is like, I'm newer to this field, but I hear that people just used to go on Dropbox and save their files with like -1-final, -1-final really, -1-final really.
That's what I do for my lab.
I know how to save files.
She does. I
can name files.
Yeah. Command S, Control S, depends.
We're all very versed in Google Drive because that's how facial recognition operates.
Awesome. We use Google Drive too, frequently.
If it's not on Google Drive, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Basically.
Wait, so you're at Walt Disney right now?
Yeah.
That's such a dream. That's amazing.
And they put you through app school or developer school or engineer.
I'm allowed to talk about it now. It was like a big secret apparently for 2 years, and now it's trademarked, so we can talk about it. But I don't know why they took so long. But I think they wanted to see if we screwed up. But, I think it was 3 years ago. I was working for Maker Studios, a YouTube company that got purchased by Disney, and I was just like an IT help desk person because before that I built computers, and I was like, I don't know, it's not my passion, but it's something I'm good at, and it pays the bills, so I'll do it. And the CEO of like this part of Disney came by and mentioned really quickly in his briefing that there was this program coming up called Code Rosie where they would choose 12 women in the company and put them through a 12-week intensive boot camp to become software developers. And I had known since I started working computers at all, I wanted to be a software developer. Every time I like walked in a room of software developers, I was like, hello, these are my people. I'm so at home right now.
From what age?
From like Oh my God. When I was like 16 and 17, a couple of my male friends were becoming software developers. And I was just like, I had that insecurity, that imposter syndrome. I was like, I know I'm good at learning other languages, but I don't think I could do computer languages because math is hard. And I just like made every excuse in the world to not go for it because I was nervous. But then when I was older, I actually was, for one semester, a computer science major only because I wanted to take this one Unix class. And I took it, and all of the dudes in the class just like didn't talk to me. They pretended I wasn't there. It was the weirdest thing.
Dudes suck in science and engineering and in general.
They just don't know they suck, though. They have no idea that what they're doing is heinous. They're like,
Are you sure? I feel like
what's your problem?
Do you think it was they just didn't know how to respond to?
I talk to a lot of them now because I work with a lot of them now, and I think the idea is, what's wrong? You're a pretty girl. You got it going on. You don't need me to give you attention. I'm just going to screw it up. If I talk to you, I'm just going to not talk to you. And I'm like, great. Well, that's horrific. You don't do that to other human beings. You just don't. There's no excuse.
I was working, I was a biomedical engineer during my master's, but I was working in a mechanical engineering group. So there were even fewer women in that department. And literally one time I was just like joking around with my friends and somebody heard me laugh and ran into our lab and was like, there's a girl here.
Oh my God.
And then just stared at like a grown ass man.
Yeah,
just stared. We were in our 20s. And then he was like, and I was like, yeah, keep it moving.
What was your plan with
Have
this
you
outburst?
never seen, were you going to whip your dick out? Like, I don't understand what you were going to do.
So you were selected for the Rosie program.
Yeah. So
That's awesome.
I was so happy. I like hid in the server room to get the phone call, and I came out and I told my then boss, and he was like, "Huh," and I was like, "Oh, okay, all right. No, you're not my support team. That's okay. I'm leaving." And he said something like, I have to share this. I sound so salty right now, and I'm sorry. But
Do
all
it.
this stuff hit me all at once when I became an engineer.
Drop that salt.
He goes, I don't know. When I worked at Microsoft, we had programs like this, but they were mostly reserved for people who were like good at their jobs, promising careers.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, I don't know. I got in, so they must think I'm okay. I'm gonna go now. And yeah, I was told by my other coworkers. I know he said that like you can come in all next week, but he's like not happy. You don't have to come in next week.
And this is your boss?
That was my boss. He no longer works for the company.
I mean,
I must make that clear.
Raging insecurity.
It was horrible.
Of course.
He would say weird shit to me can I swear on this podcast?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. So I would go out to like help an executive because executives really like me because I'm chill. I'll just be like, here's what you do. Do this and this and this. No questions asked. I won't be sheepish. I won't be like, oh, well, you could do this, but if you prefer, you could. They don't know and they don't care what the options are for like a very technical solution of something. So I just give them solutions. And my boss found that to be like incredulous. He was incredulous at that like attitude. So he would often like on my way out the door to go help these people be like, you are not to say a word to any of the executives in that room.
Oh, gross.
You are there to provide support, and that is it.
Yo, when people realize they lose control, they lose their minds.
Yeah, that's such an ego.
In retrospect, that's what it was. Yeah,
and it's just like I also prefer like a human to human interaction.
Yeah.
Why does there have to be a status?
I know
involved. Like,
and they appreciate that. Trust me. Like, if you work with executives, treat them like human beings.
Yeah.
Unless they're pieces of dirt, they will appreciate that you're not like trying to kowtow to them constantly.
And there are pieces of dirt. I'll make that
there
clear.
are definitely people who are like, oh, this girl's so casual with me. I bet she thinks she's one of us. And those people suck.
They need a therapist.
Yeah, exactly.
I've had experience. I mean, I work with executives all day as part of my day job, and I will say this: the good executives are very trained. I mean, they're supposed to be charming, like they're supposed to be likable. They want to seem approachable because with the big Fortune 500 companies, or really any company that wants to be like highly profiled or considered a high-performing company, everybody in leadership needs to be approachable.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so if you're dealing with a fuckhead executive, they don't belong there, or they need that training.
And I didn't deal with any.
Exactly.
So that was amazing.
I think that's like a growing pains of the tech industry right now because so many people are making things out of their like garage that are just like gaining so much support and so much money, and it's such a good investment, but they just shoot to this level of status that they're not used to, and that's how you get like the CEO of Uber just having no idea how to do an interview on Colbert. Like it's just crazy.
There is a little bit of a disparity right now because of Silicon Valley and because of all this like rampant growth. But it's just like a rite of passage in any of the other Fortune, like the big Fortune 500. It's like, all right, you got to this level of like management. Okay, now you need to go get media trained, and you need to basically go to charm school. Like you need to learn how to talk to people. Like when I started my day job, when I started like right out of college, like as part of our like training, like they would wine and dine us, but like we had to go through like extensive like just social integration training because so many of us were nerds.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
so like they teach you how to talk to clients. They teach you how to eat a meal. Like they teach you all these things, and eventually you all become like polished robots that are all kind of like these androids, but at the same time, it's good for real life.
Can I tell a really quick IT story from before my programming days, but where this training would have come in so incredibly useful?
Do.
Okay. Oh man, it involves a lot of blood. So
Perfect.
Okay. I was at an IT event hosted by. Okay, help me out here. He's a guy from Shark Tank. His name is Robert.
Robert from Shark Tank.
Robert from Shark Tank.
Is he a main character in Shark Tank, or
is he one of the judges?
He's one of the judges. Yeah.
Okay.
And he apparently like runs an IT company, and he was inviting a bunch of companies' IT representatives. And one of the guys in my department was like, "You want to come along? You're good at talking to people, which is kind of a rare trait in IT." And I was like, "Absolutely, I do." And it was very swanky. It was in Beverly Hills. It was an open bar, and then there was like a tequila tasting. There was a lot of booze, and then it was dinner time, and I was having a ball. I was like sitting across from a guy who worked for Dollar Shave Club, and we were talking about our IT protocols, and I was having so much fun. And then I went up to go to the bathroom, and I came back and realized we were in this private section with glass doors and windows. It was just glass from floor to ceiling. And I was like, oh my God, I'm lost. I'm lost in this super fancy restaurant where I don't belong, and I need to find my people, and I'm looking everywhere, and I see my people. And I'm like, yes. And I just like, I don't know if this is normal, but I very often do this, and it very often gets me hurt. My brain goes, target locked, go, go, go. And I didn't even think twice. I walked as fast as I could directly into the window, and I broke my nose.
Oh my goodness.
No.
And I didn't know I broke my nose because I didn't know what breaking your nose felt like. And just for future reference, if anyone's curious, it's when the bone at the bottom part of your nose, it comes up and it cuts the top bridge of your nose. So you get this actual horizontal cut. It's like an inch wide. And that is a sign of a broken nose. I found out. I did not know that though. I was like, oh, I must have just scratched the top of my nose. Thank God it's not that bad. So I went and sat down. There were black napkins. I'm still talking to people. It's kind of dark. They don't really notice at first. So I take the napkin and kind of cover my nose thinking I just have a little cut. And the guy I'm talking to stops me and goes, I'm sorry, but you are bleeding so severely.
Oh my God.
And I was like, okay, all right. I was worried about this. And a waitress comes over and goes, oh my God, that looks like it hurts. Do you want a shot of tequila? And I was like, well, yeah, I do. But also I'm bleeding a lot. Like, what do I do? And they brought me more napkins. And then Robert saw me and he just made this face like, and I'm like, I ruined his night. I was nobody, and now I'm definitely somebody. I'm somebody who ruined his night. And afterwards, I like went to say goodbye. I shook hands with all the big shots, and they were like, yeah, have a good night. And I'm like, all right, well, can't go to any of those ever again. But hey, I made my mark, and that's the kind of shit I pull by accident all the time.
They were mad at you for bleeding.
I don't know, maybe.
I think that's a very
crazy.
charming story.
I like the story.
I think that shows a lack of empathy on their part.
Yeah.
If I saw you, I'd-
well, that may be a part of their MO, but
yeah.
But you will be in that room again.
Yeah.
And now you know to like look out for glass doors and glass walls.
It's just like bombing. They're not going to remember the bombs. They're going to remember the killer set.
Oh, how do people get glass that clean?
I know it was the cleanest
I
glass
can't do
I've
it.
ever seen.
This
Like,
is straight out of a Windex commercial.
it was
I only
ridiculous.
see this in commercials.
Yeah, it was, and I can't. Yeah,
Use
it really
a paper
happened.
towel, and then the paper towels all over the glass.
I expect
and the window.
streaks. I expect some
To
kind
be
of
fair,
residue.
I've also walked into glass
Yeah.
walls. So
I feel like I
don't
have to.
worry. You're fine. This happens
You're in good
to
company.
all of us.
I am. Nobody follows it, but I own the Twitter handle Ashley's Injuries. I'm pretty sure there's like 11 people that follow it,
They're
and
going to follow it now. All of our followers.
Go follow Ashley's
it's gross. If you don't like gore, just don't go there because I post photos.
Our klutzy person is Fizza. She's the
Yeah.
one always getting injured.
Yeah, I've broken so many toes and parts of my feet.
I'm still recovering from a broken toe right now.
I fell. I had an accident where I lost my balance and I fell on some sharp shit and it literally went up my vag.
Oh my god!
Yeah, I get like shudders every
What
time.
did you? Wait, what? Can you share what you fell on?
Well, I'm not exactly sure because I was in a studio, so it could have been like the bottom of a tripod.
Oh,
It just happened so quickly and was so painful. I jumped off of it
Oh my god!
and laid on a beanbag, and I thought I could shake it off, but I had to go to get it looked
She
at.
had to go to other auditions while her vag was.
Oh yeah, I went to an audition
Before you
right
got to go
after.
check it out.
I was coaching for something, and then I went straight to an audition, and I was still bleeding. I had to get a pad. And
Wow,
and I-
that's horrific.
I didn't even go to the doctor for like a couple days.
You were healing from that for like months, right?
I think it was a full month, maybe
Yeah.
a month and a
that
half.
must have been so inconvenient. Like every time you had to like sit down or like wear tight pants.
I didn't want to wear tight pants, but
Yeah.
I don't like wearing tight pants anyway unless I have to. But
None of my pants fit anymore, so
yeah, it would have been like a massive like piece of meat. Like I would have had major camel toe if I was.
that's rough, man.
It's
But
healed,
it's
though.
fine now.
It's
Her
fine
vag
now.
is fine, boys.
It's fully
Sorry, guys.
functional. It's fine. She's recovered. For
It's
anyone
better
who's
than ever
interested.
before.
So if that happened at that Shark Tank party,
if it had been my vagina that I
Yeah.
broke, way worse. Like
They would have invented
would've never
something at
forgotten
that
me.
point. She's like, I have an idea
I have a pitch
for
for you.
something.
Do
Does
they
your
have
vagina bleed?
helmets? Maybe they should make vagina
sometimes our
helmets. just for
vaginas
physics.
bleed
I think
because of
Fizza needs
nature,
a
and
bubble.
sometimes-
I think they're called like jock straps.
Oh yeah. Do they make jock straps for women?
they should.
That is something that
I like
we
that
should
you're
look
asking
into.
Paul this.
I mean, I understand.
guy.
I understand we
Paul,
don't
have
have
only male
like,
in the
shopping
room.
for a jock strap.
Talk to
and
us
found
about
one for
vaginas.
women.
Maybe we can make a cast.
I don't know.
they don't make them.
Yeah, one for women. That's
At least
just
like,
pink
a
or
cod
something.
piece, like an under cod piece.
Floral print.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Wait.
I think something that you guys have in common is that Ashley, you enjoy like you mechanically replicating real biology and medical and consumer applications.
I love biology.
So, just to give you some background on me, I'm currently in the biomedical engineering department at USC getting my PhD, and I did my undergrad at Caltech, my master's at CMU, and I've always done like neuro stuff, and like I did microbiology, infectious diseases at Thermo Fisher when I worked there before USC. But yeah, it's
That
all.
is so cool.
We like.
so cool.
They were like, "You're really gonna like her," and I was like, "I think I will."
That is the coolest. I knew a girl who was in that program for like a couple months, and she works at Disney now as a software developer because she's like, I couldn't wing it, man. And I'm like, I'm scared of school. Like, I don't know if I'll ever
It's a
make it
lot.
back to school for that, but I'm just fascinated by it. Like, I'll spend my Sundays watching YouTube videos of like, I have weird questions on Sunday afternoons. Like, okay, I get it. Cells produce waste, but where does it go?
What type of biomedical solutions and creations like is your dream contribution?
I want to replicate. I want to replicate human cell.
That's that's what I do. Yeah. Like my lab, we work on the hippocampus, which is a structure in your brain that deals with like spatial memory, short-term, long-term memory conversion. And we are making a large-scale computational model of the rat hippocampus. And so I'm working on characterizing different cell types within that structure.
That's the best because I can see the forward applications like right away. If you can replicate portions of the brain, this is really creepy, but you can also replicate personality types, and you can replicate socioeconomic models on a gigantic scale that are incredibly reliable.
There's
which we've never done before.
And with memory issues, there's like a lot of applications with like PTSD. A lot of the funding that we get is from like the Department of Defense in like neuro and biomedical engineering, because a lot of these solutions can be applied to veterans who come back. Like the stuff that I worked on in my master's, like amputees and stuff. But there was this one guy, or there are a lot of people working on memory stuff, and there are definitely people who you can create like neuronal signals that are artificial and just basically like trick your brain into thinking things that aren't true or that or like change memories.
Yeah.
And people,
Amazing.
the applications for that are PTSD, but there's like personality changes that could come with that too.
So how close are we?
Well, I mean, I talked to you about the neural implants and stuff. I think.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Are we testing this on humans yet?
neural
On
implants
real-life
are
vets?
they're already functioning.
wow.
They've been functioning for years. They're commercial.
Yeah.
Products.
Oh, they're
but-
available.
Yeah, they're
Can
legally.
you implant a better personality in my brain?
If I
that
could do
possible?
that, I would do that with every ex-boyfriend I had.
Sometimes you can find like a benign tumor, right, that is affecting someone's personality in a way
Yeah.
they don't like, and then they're like, oh, and then when you remove it, they're like, okay, well, I don't have that problem anymore.
But there's also a lot of other diseases, like bipolar disorder. They have like that's one of the symptoms is hypersexuality. So they have like a lot of like sexual assault and like harassment cases and stuff. And in those cases, you're like, which part of this is the disease, which is the personality? It's very like complicated.
That's the big question. Yeah. That's the big question.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's them and what's not?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what is being us?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
How much of the brain is who we are, and how much, like, I like to pretend that my body is like a car that I was given.
Yes, me
and
too.
I'm just driving it. And
This is the
keep crashing
vehicle.
it.
But I
love that.
Yeah.
But I also feel like, like studying the brain, like all of the signals and stuff that makes up like all of our personalities, all of our actions, like all of our movements, everything. So it's like we are the car too. It's like
See, you feel attached to the biology. I don't fully feel attached to the biology. I feel like I'm having the Fizzer ride right now. You're having the Ashley Carey ride. You're having the Pallavi ride, the Zara ride. And then when we die, it's like, but see, that's
what's
my...
the Lindsay Lohan movie? The car where it's like the cars are
Herbie?
talking. Yeah, Herbie. We're all just Herbies.
Well, this is our vehicle. So like, you know, like Avatar, which is like sort of a kid's movie, but you see how the consciousness was able to move from the broken vehicle, the guy whose legs didn't work, to the Navi. Is that what they were?
We're all going to be
uploaded
uploaded to the cloud.
Yeah, but then it's just like, okay, is that duplication us?
Right.
Also,
I think
or
we're software.
It's up to that point, though.
I think we're software, but we're like an instance of software. Like when I run software, I make so many stupid like spiritual analogies to software all the time now. But
you made that. You made that.
You're the same person. She says this often. Where she likes her software. She just wants to like, you know.
This is the computer that my software is running on, and there's a hard drive up here. But like, there's firmware that's not really that negotiable yet, and maybe we can mess with our own firmware.
So as technically illiterate as I am, I do love computer metaphors for
so for our
existent
listeners who may not be as tech savvy, can we describe the difference between software, hardware, and firmware? Firmware is not always hardware.
Firmware is a weird one. So hardware is like, let's pretend that you're building a computer, those tower computers that we all used to have. That's the easiest way to put it, I think. The hardware is the stuff that you physically put inside of it. You put in a hard drive, and that is what records all your data and saves and writes to your data, and it's what you need to start up an operating system like Windows or Mac OS or whatever.
The software.
That's all software. So the hardware is the physical hard drive, the RAM, which is the memory, and you know, the case, that's hardware too. Your monitor, your mouse, your keyboard, that's hardware.
And for the sake of the analogy, our hardware is the body.
Right, exactly. Our physical body is the hardware.
But the hardware holds the software.
Right.
Correct?
And so the software runs on the hard drive, but it also needs to use like a series of microchips in order to do its processing functions. Like it needs to hit up the CPU, it needs to hit up the GPU if you're like watching a YouTube video sometimes. And
different processing units.
Yeah. So your software calls on the hardware constantly, but firmware is the weird one where like it's outside of the operating system. And it, like on an Apple computer, for example, if you try to put on an operating system that Apple doesn't want you to have on there, which it is totally allowed to do, then it will give you a big no sign when you try and start the computer. And that's not your operating system. You're not even in an operating system yet. The firmware, or the EFI, Apple calls it, is the set of code that lives outside of the hard drive. And it's the real interface, I think, between the operating system and the hard drive. Does that make sense? Does that sound right? I don't know.
I mean, pieces.
Yeah. You don't need to understand all of it. I don't understand all of it. There's definitely somebody listening right now who's like, she sounds so fucking stupid.
No.
I definitely got some of it wrong.
No one is saying you sound stupid. I think everyone is probably thinking like, oh, this girl's hella smart.
Yeah.
I'm always like self-conscious about that because I feel like I have to rep like the science on this show.
Yeah,
but
like
then
if
I'm
there
like,
are any better engineers listening to this, they're like, oh my God.
I'm like, I say wrong shit all the time. I'm just trying.
Yeah, at least I'm trying.
In the engineering world, we're lay people, so if you can say whatever you want.
We should just lie to them. Just come up with random shit.
I used to sell computers, and my favorite part was explaining it.
I know enough to realize when I'm being lied to, so like I'll just ask like probing dumb questions until the person gets frustrated, and I'm like, okay, I need to talk to someone else right now.
Right.
I had a friend who was super smart, and he's a biologist, and he would just make stuff up about the body all the time and just lie to me about it. And he would never tell he was like a psychopath. He would never tell anyone. He would just keep it for himself and like laugh about it. And then I finally caught on to like one of his lies, and then I realized like the whole thing unraveled. And I was like, you lied about this and this other thing? You're going to like Hopkins for medical school. What are you talking? You can't just lie to people. But he did it for fun.
Well, then it's like you'd take that as truth and you'd probably spread it.
I know. but it was just him pranking me.
Yeah, this is how flat earthers have a voice again. You know, it's just stupid people listening to smart people just making up shit.
I wonder if he knows. Like, I used to get blamed a lot for doing shit like that. Like, I don't anymore because I realized it was creating problems. I would say something that I thought was obviously a joke, and I would not consider my audience. And they would be like, wow. And I'd be like, you liked my joke. And I would not realize that you like believed it. And then people would go up to me and be like, nobody knows when you're joking or not. It's creating issues. You need to be more explicit. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to start doing that. And now I do that very carefully now.
Yeah.
Because it could cause issues if somebody goes and tells somebody else that
Those
it's
communication problems.
So speaking of like the charm school and these communication issues, you do have aspirations to be in Congress.
Yes, that's the big one.
Ooh, what?
Why?
Yeah. Ever since I was
Please explain. Okay, yes.
We need competent, kind people.
I know the Pahlavi side that we need people and we need competent people, and I'm on that side. But just to play like the contrarian right now, it is so fucked up.
Yeah.
And so bureaucratic.
I love fucked up.
And so old school.
Yeah.
Like, why does that seem appealing to you?
So I am a fixer. I was born a fixer. I want to fix shit. And we have no excuses to not be fixing shit. So when I was
like this bitch.
Yeah.
So I knew you would. When I was 15 and my parents let me have cable in my room, which was humongous, I started watching The Daily Show, and I noticed he was playing clips from like C-SPAN, and I'm like, I always wondered what C-SPAN was. I had no clue, and because like school wasn't doing a very good job, and and I was like, where does he get this hilarious shit? Like, this is some of the funniest shit I've ever seen adult people do and say. And so I'm flipping through channels one day on my parents' TV, and I'm like, oh my God, it's on all of the time. This channel is on all the time. So I'm going to hang out and watch it. And it turned out that long form public affairs programming was my jam. And not only that, but like
no one in the history of the world has ever said that sentence. Everyone just drink it in.
Is that the title?
That's the we're going to save that.
Long form what?
Long form public affairs programming.
It's my jam.
It's my jam. It is, yeah. And not only that, but every time I saw somebody come up to the podium and speak, I was like, give me your fucking job. I can do better than that. I can do so much better.
Realize you're
That's
the
what stand-ups do.
You're the like you
How
have
is that?
Because like long form public whatever.
Oh yeah, because like it's ironic. I have ADHD and I have a really hard
30
time.
seconds.
Yeah.
How were you able to watch that for so long?
I actually have ADHD. I have like it used to be moderate to severe, but I think I've got my shit together enough now where like it's not super severe. It doesn't impact my life as often as anymore, but it did like cause me to fail out of a million schools in a row. So. And this was around that time. So it was like, it was keeping my attention too. Mostly because I kept seeing myself in it. Like, I just kept seeing myself standing behind the podium and giving a great debate. And instead of like, the thing that everything pisses me off about watching Congress, but that's why I love it. And one of the main things that pissed me off that I couldn't wait to get in there and fix, and I still can't wait, is, let's say it's time to debate a bill, right? Somebody wrote a bill, you all pretended to read it, and you go up and talk about its finer points and its issues. And each person has already written a list of talking points. Yeah. And no matter what the other person says, they're going to read the list of talking points. They're not responding to you directly. Yeah. There's no chance they're going to respond to you directly off the cuff. They have a career to watch out for. They want to be reelected. They don't want to say anything stupid. They don't trust themselves. And so they get up there, and even if a person disproves every one of their talking points, it goes back to them, and they continue reading from the same talking points.
It's
and you're like, what the fuck are we doing?
And have you noticed? Stupid because you're not really like, it's just a scripted thing.
Yeah, it's like why'd you come to work today? What are you going to do here?
Have you noticed that the more Ashley's talked, the larger her glasses have gotten? Have you noticed that? Wow, it's crazy.
I don't even think you were wearing glasses when we started.
Yeah, they're natural. They're a keratin thing. They grow.
She also knows magic.
That's awesome that it inspires you, because I do think that for a lot of us, we get like overwhelmed and exhausted by it, and we don't know like what solution there is for it. But I do think that one of the things that has galvanized a lot of like scientists and technical people has been this last administration. And I do think that science and tech in general has a branding issue, because we'll describe things as a theory because we want to be very accurate with how we define things. We want to make sure that we're speaking the truth and that it's not like overstepping our bounds. But
and the
because
public
of that,
doesn't know what theory means. They think that it means you just had an idea.
They don't understand that gravity is a theory and that all of these things have a bunch of evidence behind it. But I do think that it's really important to have these people. It's even more important than the science itself, because if we do it but we can't apply it to help people, then like what's the point?
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
So I do think that having educated people who know what they're talking about and are passionate in Congress is like really important moving forward.
It's going to be hard as hell to actually get elected, and I know that. Like, it's going to take me a million years, and I'm going to run as the software developer.
You never know.
Well, here's the other part I haven't told you yet of my life goal. This is crazy, and my fiance is a political strategist, and he thinks I'm crazy. It's going to be a $0 campaign. I will accept donations in kind. Like, if you happen to run a sign company and you would like to print some lawn signs, you can do that, and I'll report it to the Federal Elections Commission because I have to. But I don't want a goddamn dollar. I don't want you to give me any money. I will not touch it.
So how do you expect to get the word out? Because that's
grassroots.
The internet.
No, that's
viral. I mean, I don't know. When I first saw when I first saw a viral video that got like 6 million views, which was a big deal back then. Now it's like 6 billion. Is a big deal. But when YouTube was new, I was on YouTube ever since I was 16. And when I first saw a video go viral, I was like, okay, if your thing is good enough, if your kittens are cute enough, if you're like, I don't know.
If you can inspire people enough to mobilize them.
Yeah. What Drake song are you going to dance to?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I've been thinking about that for years, since he was on Degrassi.
All right, we'll figure it out.
Jimmy from Degrassi. I miss those days too.
I do actually dance a lot on Twitch. I play Just Dance on Twitch a lot. That's how I work out. Because if people aren't watching me, I will stop early.
Dude, you're a big gamer also.
Oh yeah.
How many hours a day?
Well, lately I can't. Well, okay, so this is the depressing news, but I swear to God, I'm like so not depressed by it. In fact, it's like pretty invigorating to me right now. I get like a second chance at everything. In the middle of June, 3 days after my birthday, my apartment burned down completely, like everything.
Where? What?
In Echo Park. It was hot, and there was like an electrical thing. I was at work, and we came back, and everything was gone. And, you know, it was devastating for a couple days till I remembered, like, all my favorite people still exist. All my favorite songs still exist. The internet still exists. I lost some shit that was mine, but stuff that matters still exists.
Yeah.
So I lost my computer, my consoles. I lost my Nintendo Switch. I had just built a gaming PC that I was really proud of, but I was also using it to be a lazy son of a bitch who didn't do any dishes. Like, I wasn't taking care of my life either. So there are good points to having all of that ripped away from me suddenly, because I've had to like start from scratch and really think about what's important. And so now we own one console, and it, of course, because right away we had to get something. And it is a used Wii Mini, which is like the laughing stock of the video game community, because it is the most disabled version of any Nintendo console they've ever released. They purposely like sabotage it so it can't ever get on the internet so they could sell it for cheaper.
Ooh.
And I got it used, so even cheaper. But I kind of have to see the light in that too, because even though I can't go online and like compare my Just Dance scores to other people, which was the big thing I loved about Just Dance, I can invite people over and we can actually play Wii Golf in person. And that's like sort of a bygone era of gaming, right? Who comes over to play video games anymore?
Remember Duck Hunt?
Yeah, I have 2 new versions of Duck Hunt on my Wii now.
Can I tell you, when I was a kid, I'm a vegetarian. I've been a vegetarian since I was 8. When I was a kid, I wouldn't shoot the ducks. I'd only shoot the plates.
Oh.
Because I felt so bad. Yeah.
My boyfriend's vegetarian, and he tries to shoot the ducks, but he's not very good. But only because they're digital.
Maybe it's
but
like
I totally feel you on that.
Throwing him off.
I do miss those days though, when people would come over, where kids in the neighborhood would come over and play video games. Like, I was the first one on my block to get Sega Genesis.
Hey.
And it was that was the last time I was ever popular. Like, I really miss those days.
Yo, I always felt weird because like it was always with my cousins or with like a lot of dudes, and they would never let me play as much as I wanted. So then I couldn't get as good as they were, and then like it was just a cycle, and I was like, ugh, like if only I had time.
And you never convinced your parents to get you your own?
I mean, like we had a couple at home, and I would play with my brother a little bit. But whenever it was like a whole gang of kids, it was just always the dudes taking over.
Mine always belonged to my brother. So like if I got to play,
same.
It was like that. Like the parents were like, "Oh, I have a son, therefore video games."
Oh, I want to talk about.
Yeah, you brought that up. I think it's the thing about how you give toys to different toys to.
So I want to talk about that because I think that there is this. So we were talking about how there's no like real difference in intelligence or in like brain development between races, between men and women. At times, though, people have thought that object perception, like spatial objects and the ability to like pick them up in your mind and turn them around, women couldn't do that as well as men, but that seems to be trained out. So that could be blamed on the toys we were given as children, which is why it's great that there are a lot of people who make things like Goldilocks now, because a lot of it is how things are marketed. Like Ada Lovelace was like one of the first computer programmer. Women sent men to the moon. Like they were the programmers first. In the 80s, there was like a whole marketing overturn.
Despite the toys they were given.
Yeah, and they marketed computers to boys. And that's literally because we've been manipulated by the system. That's the only reason that there are more male programmers than women, because it used to be more women. And then with that marketing campaign, they changed
Hidden Figures was about, right?
Yeah,
all the
movie was amazing.
that were doing, all the mathematicians that were doing the calculations was a room full of women.
Yeah. So it's like
eventually took credit for.
It's just this.
It was seen as an unglamorous job, and then as soon as it became a potentially glamorous job, which is when computers shrunk, computers became smaller, and people had them in their homes, and that's when they were like, we need to sell these to parents. They have games in them, so we'll sell them to little boys. And maybe it was because like they're bang bang shoot shoot games. I don't know, or maybe I have no idea why it suddenly went from that, other than it became a more glamorous direction. It became a more glamorous path for someone's life. Before that, women were called, their job title was computer. It was the room of computers, and it was women. And they like sat there and did math on paper. And so like,
is this why all the robots are sexy? Like Siri's very sexy.
Women are computers.
Well, no, actually a lot of the voices for the robots and for like the GPS apps and stuff are women, because males are responsible for most violent crimes, so a lot of people are afraid of male voices intuitively.
Oh, wow. But I think you have the option to change it to a male
have the
voice.
option to change it, but the default is women.
I always thought it was because like men like growing up, I noticed like my friends would show me like my male friends would show me female pop singers when we became like teenagers, and I'm like, you are attracted to their voice, I think, in a sexual way, and I'm not. So like where it stops being like a preference of talent or style, I'm like, I think you think she sounds hot, because sometimes I listen to a dude sing and I'm like, he sounds hot. So I think sometimes when it's a guy choosing, he's like, make it sound like a hot chick. That's a good idea.
I had a friend who worked for a phone sex line, and she wasn't a traditionally beautiful woman. But she sounded traditionally beautiful.
Yeah.
That, whatever that means, you know.
Yeah. Traditionally beautiful. I don't know.
So it's interesting, like, to be attracted to a voice and sort of project a fantasy to what's attached to that voice.
Oh, totally.
Do you think we should change our voices for the podcast?
Yeah. Please subscribe.
Is this sexy? I don't know what sexy is.
Deeper, higher.
Deeper, breathy. Jessica Simpson.
I don't know. I think
sound a little bit rough.
Is sexy enough. I don't feel like doing that.
Like a voice that's propelled by constant thought.
Yeah. Thank you. But I hate when people say that.
You mean THOT?
When someone tells me like, oh, look sexier, or do this or do that, like I need to do the opposite.
Yeah, I rebel.
Yeah, me too.
I'm like, fuck
me
you.
too.
Whatever I am is perfect. Go away.
Do you ever do like live streams for things? Because like when I'm on Twitch, very often, like I did Just Dance 2 days ago, and which means now I can't like stream properly. So I set up a mirror behind my couch so you can maybe see the TV a little bit. And then I held my Wiimote and I danced. And at the very end of my stream, I had all these new viewers. And I was like, okay, guys, because I am a human and I have limitations, I can't breathe and I might die, I have to go now. And and then 3 dudes pop out of the woodwork and they're like, you should do like sexy ASMR videos.
Jesus.
And I'm like, no. And they're like, well, then you're fucking stupid, because you would get so many views. And I'm like, that's not what I'm here to do, though. That's like not what I'm here to do. And the fact that you thought that's what I was here to do, like, come on. And they're like, but those shorts. And I'm like, they're the only shorts I own. I had a fire. Come on, man. Dude, like, I don't have any clothes anymore.
I had this tweet that was like, leave a chink in your armor and a dude will stick his dick in it. Because I really believe that they'll find any excuse to sexualize or demean people.
And then they think you're stupid for not capitalizing on your sexual potential. But then if you do, you're like horrific and they hate you. Yeah. So yeah, like you can't win. And people who hate women just hate women.
But I feel like maybe you should teach a masterclass on twitching and on Twitch or whatever.
Twitching. That's a dance style. That's a dance style.
Yeah, because like it
is. Twitch has like his.
Okay. I'm a little bit on like the elder millennial side, so like a lot of this stuff and like streaming and like being in front of the camera all the time.
You and me, sister.
I know. Like
I'm the oldest Twitch streamer I know, but I also relate to little kids.
I just taught them some Instagram filters.
I can't get comfortable with it. It's just so hard to like share so much of my life and my face.
I just zone out.
I think it's also naturally hard for us too because we were taught to like repress a lot of that.
Yeah.
And that the appearance that we put forward is so disconnected from like who we are at home. And so I think we are like trying to train ourselves
well,
out
even
of it.
within the context of our family, like our parents, I'm just now starting to try to piece by piece reveal who I am to them because there was so much pushback. In Indian families, they don't want to let go. They want to control their kids. This is a gross generalization, but
I do want to say, I was just in Utah with my parents, and shout out to them. They were hella chill. I was like, at the end of the trip, I was like, wait, have I been the problem this whole time? Wait, is it me? Because I realized they really have done a really good job of accepting a lot of things that I've revealed to them as an adult.
Well, they all do the best they can. They have their own set of conditioning.
I think I was talking to my friend, or maybe you. We were talking about like how we're at this age now where our parents, like when they were our age, they like had us, and you're just like, oh shit.
Oh my god, people. I just had that thought yesterday. I was like, I am the age now that my mother was when she bore me. And what does it mean?
I can barely have a plant.
Age.
So it's just wow. They really like have to deal with
parents
the babies are annoying.
I think parents get chiller. Maybe not on the baby thing. Maybe I don't know. It really depends.
They mature too over the years. But like 30 years later, they're 30 years older.
But my parents have gotten chiller, and sometimes my mom has always been like, she's a sweet lady, but she's so misunderstood because she has a sharp tongue and she's very Christian and proud of it, and if you and it's just like all she wants to do is spread that joy. But she was also the kind of like mom who would bring in Jesus Loves You pencils on Christmas, and they were like, excuse me, public school, do you know what that means? And she's like, I don't understand what happened, what went wrong here, like what he does love you. And I'm like, okay, all right, well, and so like all my life I've had to like ask my mom to reel that stuff in a little bit, and it felt kind of wrong because like I want her to be able to be herself, and sometimes she goes through low self-esteem bouts, but as we've gotten older, she used to send me emails when I moved to LA like, I know that you are learning how to be an adult, but I pray for you every day and every night because you are living in sin. And I heard a televangelist talk about a woman who was in a warehouse just like where you live with musicians, and she had a drug overdose. And I'm like, I just smoke pot, Mom. Like I can't overdose on that. I'm gonna be okay.
I like at the beginning of doing comedy, I would get these long emails from my parents telling me that I was like throwing away my life and my career and stuff. And then this weekend, I was telling my parents. Like I was like, oh, I'm getting this much money for this show, and my mom was like, they should pay you more. Like that's progress. That's great. Progress. I was like, you need to be my manager.
That's advocating for you, and that's amazing. And then recently, like after the fire, I will say I got deeply spiritual about it. I just got spiritual about life. I'm like, I'm not fighting this anymore. Like I hate religion. I was raised under like a very, very strict set of rules that I disdain and will disdain for the rest of my life.
Relate a lot
limited
to that.
Me unnecessarily, but I believe there's a higher power because ever since I started meditating to get my bugs fixed in my code, and it worked, I'm like, what up to the Most High? So, my mom sent me an email after the fire that said, it was mostly positive, and then it said, your father and I are praying that you surrender fully to God. And I was like, I'm not going to be mad at you right now. I'm just going to say this. And I said, I surrendered everything I own with a happy heart, and we're doing really well, me and God. Yeah. So I'd like you to please go a little slower next time you form your sentence when you talk about my relationship with my Creator. And also, maybe be judgmental a little less, because that's what Jesus would do. And she didn't respond, and I was like, that was pretty sharp-tongued of me. I might have upset her. And a week later, she called me, and she's like, you were right. I'm sorry. And I'm like, what? She's never said you're right to anybody ever.
Well, it's just like everyone has their own understanding of what that
all is. Yeah, and what it's supposed to look like and who you're supposed to call him. He doesn't care what the fuck you call him.
Him, her, it, they, us. I think we're all God.
I used to say the universe, and my mom was really worried I was some kind of hippie, so I say God for her.
Yeah.
But in general, and then I sound like one of those stereotypical millennials. Now I hear us being parodied in the media when I say the universe.
I used to say the universe, but now I think there's something beyond just the physical. So
yeah,
the universe
absolutely.
Is just the physical universe,
yeah.
But what about just all of everything?
I read a lot of near-death experiences, and I think that's what brought me into a spiritual understanding that there is a thing. Because pretty much everybody, if you just look up NDEs, near-death experiences, you will see
the best.
You will see, like, I read the stories on like the websites, and you'll see just this plethora of stories that are all the same fucking story. And if we don't know what happens when you die, I think they're a pretty good place to start. When you find people who have been pronounced dead and then were revived by medical science, and they all come back and say, okay, so here's what I just saw. Yeah. I floated up to the corner. A light came and picked me up. I went through a tunnel. I saw a bunch of family members. This giant light came, and all I felt was just love and acceptance and joy and just this euphoria that I can't even describe in human words. And then all these screens appeared, and I had to watch my whole life. And then every single thing that I saw was a replay, but it was from the perspective of the people I affected. So every time I hurt someone, I had to feel their pain tenfold. But every time I made someone happy, I felt their joy tenfold. And it was so fascinating to learn from every angle all the effects that we have on people, because I never thought about it before. And then, of course, by the end of it, the big light's like, but you can't stay. It's not time. So you have to go back.
Yeah.
So I think death's going to be dope.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think it's going to be like, for me, that version in my head is like your memories and your neurotransmitters.
Yeah, it's just DMT.
Like, yeah, so it's just, I think it's going to be fire. So what I want to do.
But I'm not like stoked enough to do it early.
I never want to do heroin while I have a life to live, but I do want to do heroin and then come down from it and then die.
Yeah.
Because then I'll experience heroin and it won't be a risk, and then I'll be at normal, and then I'll die, and then that'll be all my natural high.
Because heroin gives you that feeling. Like, I've never done it, but I have friends who have become like severely addicted to it. I've lost friends from it, and when I talk to them about it, they're like, I swear to you, dude, it feels as good as death. Like the kind of euphoria you get after you leave your body, and you're like, oh, I'm alive for the first time. I thought I was dead, but this is actually like, I feel more awake right now.
I want to do a ton of really risky behavior before I die.
Tell your family to just have some heroin and some other crazy drugs.
Thank you. Oh my God, thank you.
For sure.
I'll put it all together.
Where do you think they keep it in Utah?
In my will. Oh, Utah has a huge meth addiction problem and depression problem. Everybody's on Prozac, and there are all these meth houses that are exploding.
Do you think that's because of like serotonin issues from the meth?
I don't know. I feel like they might be separate issues. Okay. I'm not sure if the Prozac is like like all the Mormon housewives and stuff.
Oh,
and
what did it used to be in the like 60s? Housewives took something way more vile.
They used to give housewives
Valium.
Oh, they also like gave a bunch of housewives LSD.
Why has no one ever given me LSD? Well, like you'd have to get my permission.
You could literally walk outside.
I can't find it.
I was actually gonna like bring that up. Like those near-death experiences, I feel like you can sort of shed a more specific perspective, experience a broader experience or broader perspective on something like LSD, even mushrooms. The first psychedelic I tried was salvia, which is horrible. I would never recommend it to anyone. Way too intense. But I did have that experience of, well, I felt, first of all, my consciousness right now is not in a place where I can experience this level of reality. Right. So it was fucking terrifying. Right. I thought I was peeing myself the entire time, literally. But every moment in it that I've experienced was like a frame.
Okay, I can see that.
And I don't, that.
Yeah. I've done a number of. I'm gonna run for Congress someday.
Yeah.
If I were to have done drugs, then in those cases, I probably would realize that what we're experiencing is not all of what we can experience.
Yeah. That's pretty much
if I were to have done drugs,
which we would never do.
I mean, I'm not afraid to talk about it because, like, pretty much our last 3 presidents have admitted to, having.
Yeah.
And you can't get arrested for saying I did drugs 3 years ago. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't.
And I mean, I I'm friends with lawyers who've worked in DC, who worked in politics. I'm friends with people in finance. Like everybody's done hard
Human
drugs.
brains like drugs.
People
It's
have
like
done
they were
hard
made
drugs.
for them.
And even if you haven't, like I don't know, I grew up like, you know, taking Adderall along with other friends.
I just quit Adderall after 10 years.
And all drugs are not equal.
This is real me.
There's this like big umbrella of drugs.
That's
Thank
a big
you.
deal.
It wasn't. It never fell into like addiction category, but I was becoming annoying, and I felt it, and the people around me felt it, and they didn't know what was causing it, and I was being told like people are avoiding you.
Was it the Adderall you said?
It was the Adderall.
As soon as I stopped
the same
taking the
problem.
Adderall, people liked me again.
I had a dependence on Adderall
Yeah.
for a while, and it's like Coke.
yeah.
It really
Yeah.
is.
I mean, it was. I will not lie. It turned my life around when I started taking it because I was failing out of school. I couldn't pay rent. I couldn't keep a job. I couldn't show up to work. I couldn't get my body to go to work. There were like severe issues. I was in severe depression because of the ADHD. And then I finally said, okay, fine, I'll try Adderall. I know it's like the hard one, the heavy one, but nothing else worked. And so sure, I started going to class. I started learning more things, doing more things. My YouTube channel blew up because I was like working super hard on all my videos and putting so much effort into them. But I was also doing shit like going to my political science 101 class, and I asked the stupidest question. Like, I had read some meme and I misremembered it, and I went very proudly, "This is Adderall. This is what Adderall does." I went, "Isn't it true? Excuse me, isn't it true that Abraham Lincoln had slaves?" And my teacher was like, "Oh my God, where did you hear that? No, that's not like some founding fathers did. But Abraham Lincoln was like, no, bad question." And I'm like, and I would just say shit like that. Like I wouldn't think it through and it would come out of my mouth. And if I had thought it through, it would have made sense that didn't make sense. But I wasn't thinking
But
shit
it was
through. I just
also
saying it.
like you ask probing questions like that to like start a dialogue or
Well, I was trying to be like,
for attention. Or,
I was trying to start a dialogue. I was trying to start like a deep, long dialogue. And it was kind of like the kid who's like, weren't we supposed to have homework today?
There were a lot of kids like that in my classes.
I have people like that in my meetings at work, and I'm like,
no.
it takes every part of me just to not burst.
I'm sure that was me at work. I was like the overdo it. Like, guys, we're just sleeping on this and we need to be doing this. And like when you're the only person in the room on Adderall, they notice. But if the whole room's on Adderall, you're going to get a lot of shit done. Have fun. You know, you can't annoy each other because you're all on the same level.
Yeah.
But if you're the only one on it, you're the only one on speed in the room where everybody else is just like coffee max.
Yeah.
Then you're the one who like suddenly has this drive to get way more shit done than most people have any interest in doing in a day. And it's obvious.
I feel like that's sober sometimes because like I'll be in this mode like, and you get like this too, like where we'll both be like, I got to do all these things on this list. I got to check all this stuff off, and other people are just living around you, and you're like, I don't have time for this. I got to do my shit.
Yeah.
But it's like I'm not on anything. I'm just that's my personality.
I have a coworker who I tell him reminds me of me on Adderall. And
I have bouts of mania, so that sort of can be.
It's kind of like that.
But I understand. Like I like working at night. Like
Yeah,
you.
same.
I like working through the night. I don't know. There's something about it being quiet and no one's there to bother me.
Yeah.
That I really appreciate. But yeah, we'll just sort of get into this focus mode. It's almost like I'm using the work to self-medicate in a way. It's so stimulating. To keep
No,
working.
that's not how I'm using it. What? I'm totally fine thinking about the parts of my life I'm unhappy with.
That's probably what I do with video games, which is way less useful.
But you also think like video games, like they have a potential to enrich our lives. Like in what ways?
Oh my God, yes. Oh, yes. Okay, so I think, first of all, that the biggest proprietors of video games should be old people because their bodies don't work as well anymore. They're in pain all the time. Wouldn't you want to be the motherfucker from Assassin's Creed jumping from roof to roof and trying to save the Republic? That's fun. If they can just get past the learning curve of like the controller, and as we work to make video games more accessible and make their interfaces more accessible, this is becoming a reality. I love watching YouTube videos where old ladies try iPads or video games for the first time. There's an old lady who plays Skyrim on YouTube, and she's the best at it.
But that's also really good for like
Cognition.
for dementia and for like other memory issues and stuff to like prevent that from progressing.
Yeah, and I just think the video games are for everybody, and you don't have to like them. I have a cousin in New York, and I talk to her on the phone sometimes, and I asked her what her favorite video game was because that's like one of my favorite questions to ask somebody. Because even if you don't play a ton of video games, you probably have a favorite, right? At least that you've played sometime in the past. She does not. And I'm like, I can't fathom this. She's 13. I'm like, okay, but like your friends play games. Don't you ever want to play games with them? She's like, no interest at all. And I'm
What
like,
is she interested
so I
in?
asked her, what is it? What do you do?
Yeah.
And she's like, I like skateboarding. And I'm like, okay, that's badass. I'm not that cool. I wish I were that cool. I fall off skateboards. But like,
I think like what sometimes discourages me from getting more into video games is just I feel like I like to move.
yeah.
So I like that.
I like to
physical
play
activity.
moving video games a lot, like Just Dance, Wii Golf, all those fun things.
And there's a lot of like really cool VR things that are out now that are like more interactive and you can like move around a little bit. Although one time I did walk into a wall. So
I've done that. I've definitely done
beware.
that.
I also think that video games now more than ever are very great tools for learning and for educational information. Like they're being used in schools. It's similar to how like YouTube video, you can like learn anything on YouTube, but it's more interactive, so it's more likely to make it stick with young people.
I feel like video games are medication for ADHD because nothing else works for me.
It's gamifying learning, and it's like you feel the serotonin, you feel the reward of like winning a game, but you're also like just learning in a more fun way. And it like learning doesn't have to be dry. I know a lot of people have a lot of different ways of learning, and if you like use video games to do it, why not? I think it's a genius way to do it.
Well, gamification is like really big, even in the corporate world right now, even in like corporate learning, since adults learn a lot different than children.
Right.
I mean, I can't tell you how many training classes I've been in where it's just like a interactive game of learning.
Sitting
and then it
still
just
and
gets really
listening is
competitive
like-
because you
that's
get a bunch of
nice.
adults in the room and you're like, no, I'm going to win this. And it's fun. But at the same time, like in corporate America, you're learning so much like just boring, dry stuff.
It's true, yeah.
And
How
I'm
to
glad
not sexually assault
Exactly.
people.
It's really boring.
Wait,
and
I don't
dry.
understand how.
So if they turn more of that into games, I think it would be a more fun place to work.
Absolutely. I just want it like there are people who thrive in an environment where you have to sit still and shut up for 57 minutes. That is high school and college. I have never had that machinery. I have never had that protocol inside of me. I will find my brain, and this is, I think, just the epitome of what ADHD is. My brain will find any excuse to break the cycle of monotony. And very often in college, because I like in high school, I could be the class clown and get in trouble, and I didn't care, nothing bad happened. But in college, I would just be like, can I go to the bathroom? And then I would not come back. And that was me every single class, every single day, because I just couldn't sit there. It drove me crazy. It physically hurt me.
Yeah.
And so, like, for kids like that, I want kids like that in the future to be able to complete school. I never got to complete school because I just couldn't handle it. But if they gamified the classes, if you could be, like, sitting still and shutting up is my nightmare. It doesn't mean I want like attention. I just want a dialogue. I want to do something.
Yeah.
And if that means that I could be playing a video game, then please give me that.
If they gamified politics, if they gamified voter registration, voting, if they
voting
like,
itself.
it is a competitive game, but it's so much larger than individuals that they feel like they don't have an impact. But if they
compete.
if they could find a way to like gamify bugging your congressman,
Like a debate that involves like a session of like some kind of competitive competition. Yeah, like that
would be
sounds
amazing.
amazing. More people would be interested in debates. I think people watch debates because they feel guilty. People vote because they feel guilty. People do all these. I know. None of my friends have this passion that I do for like being in Congress. So I understand. You're like, shit's fucked up. What do I do? Vote. Okay, but I don't know who to vote for.
How broken do you feel our system is?
I mean, it's not as bad as other countries.
Like, if you want to join Congress, you must feel it's redeemable.
Yeah, absolutely, it's redeemable. I don't want to give up on my country. I think that the ideals that our country is founded upon, despite the massive hypocrisy that was founded in the middle of, I think the ideals themselves are really special.
Well, it was like also at the time who was considered a person was
which a little fucked up.
I will say that this is like a side note, but I hate when people are like, this country was founded on Christian values. And I'm like, oh,
No.
slavery? Do you mean slavery? Is that what you mean?
Well, separation of church and state is also a big foundation of
on the
everything, so-
Constitution.
Unitarianism
Yeah.
is what our founding fathers. They were Unitarians. They didn't like I was raised in the evangelical community, which will be like Christianity, Western American Christianity. That's the way to get to heaven. The other people, they're nice, but they're misguided.
I have a serious issue with dogma.
Yeah. Oh my God. I hate exclusionism. I hate exclusionary religion. And so like that's what I talk to my parents about mostly when we Skype.
Having said that, I was pressured into going to Mecca tomorrow. Actually, I fly out.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I know we're bringing this up at the end, but like, my parents are Muslim and they want to make a sort of family trip out of this,
Sure.
and I guess save our soul.
The pilgrimage.
Also. Yeah. So I'm anxious. I don't know fully what to expect. I don't have my abaya or burqa or whatever yet.
You have to get one, right?
Oh yeah,
And it's going to be hot as hell.
I think it's
100 degrees.
Oh.
I think it's going to be cleansing.
Tell your mom to bring an extra one. We've been through this. So you need an abaya. Tell your mom. You need a fanny pack.
I told her to bring a camel pack.
That's a good idea.
I sent her all this stuff about REI and Burning Man and Coachella just because it's similar.
It's pretty similar.
Can we pick one up on the way?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can.
I love camelbacks.
I was talking to my dad about Hinduism. My family, a lot of us are atheists, but we like learning about Hinduism.
Just say your joke.
No, I don't. I'm not. No, I'm not going to say it. No,
say it. You got to say it.
I heard it. I heard it on the other podcast.
Hindu by culture, but atheist by intelligence.
Yeah.
But, okay.
That writing though.
Yeah. But okay. So I was talking to my dad about it, and his view of Hinduism and growing up in it, because he also went to a lot of like Christian masses and stuff in India at Christian schools and with Christian people around him. So he's like put in his time into other religions. He was like, I've noticed things. But he was saying that like with Hinduism, like you can be a Hindu and also be other things. Like you can be a part of the Hindu religion as a Jew or as a Muslim or as a whatever.
Right.
Like it's very like universal. Obviously, there are people in Hinduism that take it very seriously. They still participated in the violence during partition. Like it's still a thing. It's dogma, but like the core of it, he as an atheist, he was very appreciative of. So I thought that was kind of like cool.
I love that. Like I feel that like Buddhism is kind of that way too.
Which came out of Hinduism.
Exactly. Yeah. Somebody at Maker Studios, when I was leaving to go to Kodorosi, got me a book called Buddhism for Dummies, and he was like, "Just so you know, I think you're a Buddhist." And I was like, "Oh, you're not the first person to tell me that."
Well, there's philosophies in there that I really identify with. But there's like sort of that nugget of truth in a lot of these spiritual beliefs that later were, changed into religions for the sake of... They
came from the same weird experiences, and then people took them and ruined them.
Well, they basically turned a religion and a belief system into a government.
Yes, exactly. It's governed like a government. Like you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. It's mostly can'ts. Control. And this is a life of cans. So I'm not going to live my life in a system of cans.
I love that.
Can't do it.
I'm writing that down. Okay.
So many good sound bites on this one.
I know.
Should we do our Indian stuff?
I think we should do our Desi stuff.
Sure.
Sorry. No. Well, you guys, your country, your home country is part of our home country.
Yeah, we're all one at one.
Only because of colonialism, though, because we really are a billion separate.
I thought about that today. The United States is like a... It's okay.
Did I talk about like what my roommate said about how colonialism sprouted from Europe? So I'm gonna get this wrong, but my roommate's really smart. So, but he was telling me about how I think the Black Plague and like these diseases hit Asia before it hit Europe, and so it didn't affect Europe as heavily as it did Asia. Yeah. So there was a lag, and during that time, Europeans were able to go over into Asia and like conquer shit and like take over shit. So it's literally like colonialism, colorism, all of this like violence committed on these other like ethnicities and stuff is because of just a random happenstance of where the disease hit first.
So it just made them more vulnerable.
It made them their rulers more vulnerable and their governments more vulnerable to it.
They just didn't have the manpower to fight back.
Right, exactly. So it's literally just because disease hit Asia before it hit Europe.
But here, we brought smallpox blankets to help clear the land by killing people, and was that on purpose?
I don't think so. I think that was a happy accident.
That's a big question because, like,
I think some of it was on purpose.
I want to be like Christopher Columbus raped a lot of people. Like, he would do it. He wouldn't put it past that guy.
Some of it was smart enough to know what was going on.
Yeah, how do you know what? I mean,
I don't think he was smart enough to know that he's bringing like a boat full of diseases.
Oh no, I think that they didn't know that they were bringing a boat full of diseases.
They didn't even know where they were going.
But there was like a lot of perpetual like violence and trying to conquer shit. So I think it was a combination.
Yeah, so even if they didn't know about the diseases, maybe they would have. Even if they did, or like I don't know,
they're just like coughing and they're
inherently inherently harmful. That's all. Yeah.
I mean, can you even conquer peacefully? I haven't seen any of that in history.
Well, I think the nature of conquering is
otherwise you want like there's winning over and there's conquering and conquering implies aggression.
It's like control versus participation. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, we should ask the Desi questions.
Questions. Let's do it.
So we ask 2 questions at the end of this podcast. One is Desi means like South Asian. Mm-hmm. So who is your favorite Desi celebrity? And you can't say us.
Yeah, I know that'd be cheating. Can I say 2?
Yeah.
Okay, I have 2 favorites. One of them is One of them is a person that I used to work with at Maker Studios, and I had no idea like that she was known for other things. I just knew that she was like she was our host on a bunch of things, and her name is Natasha Chandel, and she is this amazing woman from Toronto who she does talks on Desi culture, but she also hosts a podcast called a podcast about dating, and it's a really hilarious one. And she just I've never met a more driven person at that company. And she wasn't like the head of the company. She was just this chick who was awesome in every way. She was always grinding, and she continues to grind. And I've never seen her like take a grind break, which is incredible. I just don't.
Natasha Chandel.
And the other one, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
The other one is this Canadian YouTuber that is hilarious. And his name is Just Rain.
Just Rain.
He's Sikh. He's
a Sikh dude.
He does these great videos about growing up with Desi parents, and they're so funny. And like in some like it's fun because it's educational for me because I didn't grow up with Desi parents, but it's also funny because they share a lot in common with like strict Italian parents or like religious parents of any type. By the way,
your pronunciation's impeccable.
Yeah.
Very good.
I practice on the way. I've been saying it wrong my whole life, but I reminded myself before, this is so embarrassing. It rhymes with Tina Fey. Because I'm like, when else does A-E make a long A sound?
This is how they.
A.
Like, they like They.
Oh, there you go.
It's
those
slightly, people see, they see.
But it's slightly different because it's between a D and a TH.
Yeah.
But we give them the TH because we're like, that's the closest. Yeah. But, and then our other, that's awesome. I think that's the most like in-depth response we've gotten so far. Usually it's the big names.
She also knows the celebrities on YouTube and she like watches them. So it's very cool.
That's a whole different demographic.
Just Rain, if you're listening to this, we would love to have you on our podcast.
Yeah, or Natasha.
That'd
be dope. Then our other question is, I'm sure you probably don't have as many because you watch these YouTubers talk about Desi culture, but this is a safe space for any questions you may have about Desi culture that might feel dumb or you might think were previously ADHD driven, Adderall driven or whatever, but it's safe to ask it here. We like to bring people in.
Okay. My boyfriend told me, do not say this one.
Say it.
This is why I'm saying
100%.
it. Yes. It's getting hot. Hold on. It's not so much a question as it is like something I noticed and was just fascinated by recently, and not that recent, like 2 years ago. I happened across a video of people who live in India and they all have albinism. And they just look like blonde white people. And I was like, I've seen albinism in like lots of different people of different colors, but I was just like so incredibly like, oh my God, like we like to think that like races are just like inherently genetically different, like head shapes are different, face shapes are different, nose shapes are different, but we're actually just really biased with colors because when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, like every one of those person just looks like every one of those people just looks like a blonde person from anywhere. And I don't know, that shocked me for a second. And then I was just like, okay, I don't know. That's not a question. I don't know why I brought it up.
I mean, race is not scientifically defined because it can't be because there aren't that many differences. Like the things you check off on boxes here for like, for government forms or whatever versus in the UK are different because race it's not defined. It's just like what we think are different things. And there's been so much migration throughout history and so much fucking. Shout out to everyone who's fucked. That like there's no real thing as race. There's just like a spectrum of different, colors.
It's a social
of people.
construct for identifying.
Right,
Well, at this point,
it's a way to enslave people. Honestly,
and like what else are we using it for?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's a way to tribalism
to separate.
But in India, there's so many different ethnicities, and it is very tribalistic. And like a lot of the North Indians were like fucked by Russian people and like Aryans and stuff, and like the South Indians are like a different ethnicity. My like Tamil people are Dravidian, which are like the people from there.
I've read about the Dravidians. Super cool.
Yeah, so it's just like a mix of people. So it makes sense that like I have cousins that look French. They have like light eyes and black hair and white skin.
I have a cousin who looks white.
I have some cousins who are Indian. I'm going to see them after this.
I just Googled image albinos of India.
Yeah,
and you're absolutely right.
Thank you. I felt so stupid saying this.
I agree with you. Totally.
And they were living in a home, and they were like, "Here's what it's like being albino in India." And I was like, "Okay, show me."
Speaking of colorism, I mean, I feel like white skin has been worshipped throughout, cultures everywhere. Like, how are albinos treated in India?
I think in a lot of places, albinos are like, any person who's born in a body that's hard to understand.
Yeah,
there faces some type of like unfair persecution. And I think the reason that they all live in a home together is probably because there is some base of persecution culturally in the society, but like that seems to happen everywhere.
I think in India it's really weird. I don't know if this is true of other cultures, but I know that for like intersex people in India and for other people that don't fit into these like traditional boxes, it's both like a strange like worship thing while simultaneously like mistreating or discriminating or making them feel othered. So there were intersex people and like people who would come, my mom was telling me, to the houses when there was like a wedding or a birth, and they would say they would use the fear and the misunderstanding that people had against them to their advantage. And they would say, well, we're going to curse you if you don't give us money because we know this celebration is happening.
Yeah, you kind of have to get their blessing.
Yeah, and so you have to get their blessings and like you have to pay them. And so from that, because of how the society was set up and how they were viewed, they, in order to like get food, to get money, they would use that to their advantage because they had to.
They weren't being hired.
Right. So it's like they're attributed these like higher powers in India at least, but simultaneously being pushed away.
Yeah, just being categorized as an other and being completely unallowed to live a normal life.
Yeah.
Whatever that means.
Anyway, so that's our podcast. I'm really happy to end there.
That was a weird one. I'm so sorry.
No,
but
where can people find you? And
don't find me.
Amazing.
Where are we going to watch you dance?
Okay.
In whatever clothes you feel like dancing in.
Tell us about your Twitch. And
my Twitch is Broke the Interweb, and my YouTube is Broke the Interweb. And my YouTube has politics and stuff on it, and my Twitch has video games. Actually, they both have video games lately. But yeah.
Cool. And will you let us know when you start your campaign?
Yeah, of course.
That'd be awesome.
I will be running in upstate New York, though. I have to go represent my people.
Do you have other socials? Do you do the Insta or the Snap?
Instagram and Twitter are both Ashley Carey. ASHLEYCAREY.
Cool.
Awesome.
My stuff is all Paula Viganalin, PALLAVIGUNALAN. That's my website, my Instagram, my Twitter, and my Facebook.
And I'm Fizza Dasani. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Fizza Dasani, FIZAADOSANI, FizzaDasani.com, and on Facebook it's at the Fizza, 1Z2As.
And all my socials are really Zara. Zara is spelled ZAHRA. Thanks.
And our facial recognition comedy socials are exactly that on Instagram and Facebook, and it's Facial Rec Comedy on Twitter. We have a Patreon, you guys. You can find the videos to these podcasts on there if you subscribe to our Patreon, which is patreon.com/facial recognition comedy. Also, if you guys rate and review this podcast on iTunes, you'll be entered into a raffle to win a prize. And there'll be cool, fun, like merch and sneak peeks and stuff that you'll get from that. So please do that. And thank you so much for coming, Ashley.
Thank you so much for having me and putting up with my ignorance.
I feel like we need you back for another episode. I learned so much.
If only everyone could have your brand of ignorant. We'd be doing all right.
That's okay. Thank you.